Next, from Springfield, we sit down with State Treasurer Mike Frerichs. Treasurer Frerichs explains the details of why his office is currently being sued, as well as the impact the lack of a state budget is having on those who rely on government services. This runs about 15 minutes.
Mike Frerichs, thanks for joining us again on the Illinois Channel.
Terry, thanks for having me.
Your office put out a press release today that your office was being sued by one of the insurance companies, Kemper Insurance. Mm-hmm. It's probably easy enough to understand, but would you walk us just through what the issue is that they're suing you about?
Well, I knew when I took this office I'd likely be subject to lawsuits. I didn't realize an insurance company would sue me for trying to do my job. We were sued last week, and this all stemmed from the fact that my office is in charge of unclaimed property. It's our job to reunite property, dollars, or physical attributes with their rightful owners. And too often in the past, we've had insurance companies that owe money on a policy to a deceased heirs to fulfill their wish when they dutifully made their payments to the insurance policy, and the insurance companies haven't paid out. They say that they don't have to pay out until someone, an heir, contacts them and presents them with proof of death. In some cases, when people haven't been making payments for 20 years, when it's clear that something has happened. What we want to do is we want to take the proceeds of those life insurance policies, where it's clear someone has died, and reunite them with their proper heirs to fulfill the wishes of the deceased.
How would your office know if, let's say there's different kinds of insurance. If someone's buying term insurance, life insurance, that's going to run out. But if they have whole life, someone might have quit paying 25 years ago, but still have a whole life policy that's in effect.
That's true.
How would your office know if Joe Schmidt died and that, one, the insurance company should pay it off, and two, what jurisdiction do you have? If Joe Blow, let's say, sure, had lived in Illinois, but he died in California, when does your office become involved as far as saying you, insurance company, have to pay off the benefit?
So that's what's caused this lawsuit. We wrote a letter to Kemper and their attorneys saying we'd like to have our third-party auditors come in and compare their list of policies versus the death master file. This is a list the federal government keeps of people who have died in this country. And insurance companies use that death master file when they're paying out annuities to make sure that they're not paying out to someone who is deceased. So all we've done is ask them to let us come in and to audit their books. Now, we have part of state statute which allows us to do this as part of our unclaimed property. Now, this was a practice that was going on for a while, but in 2013 there was a settlement, a nationwide settlement with about 22 different insurance companies, and they agreed to let in these third-party auditors to try and make sure that people who paid for a policy, who have since passed, but they've not paid out the descendants, to make sure we get what's rightfully belonging to the descendants into their hands.
And again, as far as the jurisdiction, does it matter what constitutes your office as Treasurer of Illinois becoming involved? Is it whether the insurance company does business in the state, or does it have to do with whether or not the deceased was a resident of Illinois?
Yeah, so we are in charge of policies here in the state of Illinois. In the case of this lawsuit, Kemper and the three companies that they own have about 160,000 active policies in the state of Illinois. What we would like to do is see if any of those policies should be paid out, and then to work with that insurance company to make sure the rightful heirs of the deceased get what is rightfully owed to them.
And what has Kemper said to your office?
Well, we just asked to be able to come in and audit under our authority, under unclaimed property codes and state statute, and they responded with a lawsuit.
How would that work? Let's say they said, okay, you can come in. Is it your actual office that does the audit, or do you hire an outside firm to go in and audit it?
We have third-party auditors that will go in, will look through that list, compare it to the death master file, and relatively easily tell us who is likely dead. And then we can follow up and reach out to the heirs and descendants of the deceased. You know, the insurance companies don't have a financial incentive to pay out. But we are in charge of unclaimed property. We do this every day, trying to reunite property, money, stocks, and other assets with their rightful heirs. So we're familiar with doing this. We have a real incentive to do it. It is one of the things we're required to do in this office. It's something I take very seriously. And I think part of the reason that we're being sued is because I think we as the state treasurer, the state treasurer's office, are consumer advocates. You know, we want to go out there and make sure the consumers are getting value for the things that they buy and that rightfully belong to them. And that's what we were doing when we sent the letter to Kemper, you know, telling them that we want to help do our job and reunite money with people. And I think well, I can only guess why they wouldn't want the descendants of the deceased or the deceased's last wishes to be fulfilled.
If somebody dies and they had no heirs, would the insurance company still have an obligation to pay death benefits, and if so, to whom?
Well, so they should have named a beneficiary in their policy. So maybe they didn't have heirs, but they wanted it to go to a cousin or to a coworker or a friend,
Or even a nonprofit or a charities,
yeah.
perhaps.
And so it's our job to reunite and make sure their wishes are fulfilled. Now, in some cases, there are people who have been dead for 30 plus years and the insurance policy was not paid out. And in those cases, perhaps their heir might have passed. Then it's our job to find who the rightful descendants of the beneficiaries are. So in some cases, you have term life insurance that should have been paid out. In some cases, there's a whole life policy. And what insurance companies have done is when the policyholder stops making payments, the insurance company will take the proceeds, the value of that whole life insurance policy, and count it against the payments, decreasing the value over time. And that way they make out doubly so. But as a consumer advocate, it's our job to make sure that when that death has occurred and when that contract should be fulfilled, that we do that as soon as possible.
Has your office considered introducing a bill that would require insurance companies doing business in the state of Illinois to allow an audit and to, well, let me stop
Well,
there.
I think we have a difference of agreement with Kemper. We believe that state statute allows us to come in and conduct audits. We do that with other insurance companies, we do it with banks, we do it with companies that are holding on to property that belongs to Illinois citizens. No, we're not bringing this in so the state treasurer can have more money. We hold on to this money in perpetuity. We hold on to it forever. So if we find something that belongs to Terry Martin and we can't reunite you with it, and you then pass someday, we'll make sure that if your descendants come and can prove that they're rightful heirs, we'll give it to them.
Just before we close out on this topic, do you know how many insurance companies are doing business with the state? We talk about Kemper, but how many insurance companies are doing business in the state, and is Kemper the only one that has disagreed with you as far as allowing you to audit their books?
There are a large number of insurance companies doing business, selling life insurance policies in the state of Illinois. At least 22 of them have agreed to let us come in and audit their books. And in terms of their policies, it represents over half of the policies in this state. We think that Kemper should be in line with the majority of policies out there. Unfortunately, they're the only ones who have decided to sue the state of Illinois and to sue me.
Let's turn to another topic. Obviously, the issue of the day is the fact that we don't have a budget, and it's impacting any number of people. Earlier, as we taped this today, you were having a press conference with some other people, AARP being partner, and talking about the impact that not having a budget is having on some of the citizens of Illinois who are relying on government services. What was the point that you were trying to make in that press conference?
Well, I went out and toured their agency. We in the Treasurer's Office are now in charge of a new program called Secure Choice, which is going to make it easier for people to save for retirement. You know, right now, about half of the people out there who don't have a workplace retirement program in place have saved about $0 for their retirement. It's a looming crisis in our state. And so it is my job to make sure we get this program set up right and get families on the path to save for their retirement so they can enjoy their golden years and live with dignity. Now, what we're doing, though, is not going to help these people here today. So we went out and to talk with people at the Senior Service Center to see what kind of challenges they're facing. And it's clear that these are people who are making sacrifices. And it's my hope that the governor and the General Assembly put their other issues aside and come together and negotiate in good faith to pass a balanced budget. Because I think what we're finding is some of these cuts that have been made in order to save money are ultimately going to cost the state more money in the long term. You have these agencies here that are dedicated towards keeping senior people in their homes. And that ultimately saves those small investments in keeping them in their homes, saves over the much larger cost of moving them into a nursing home.
The secure choice, is that the bill that Senator Biss introduced?
Yes.
Which is basically a 401k type of program?
Yeah, like an IRA, but it'll be an automatic payroll deduction, which just makes it easy for people. You know, right now, if you work for an employer that offers a pension, offers a 401k and automatically comes out of your payroll, about 85 to 90% of those people are actively saving towards their own retirement. But for those employees out there who don't have a workplace deduction, for whom it's not easy and simple and set up without thinking about it, it's more like about 15% of those people are adequately saving for their retirement. So what we want to do is make sure employers are offering this automatic payroll deduction. It's not an added burden on the employers. The Treasurer's Office will help set this up and run this program so that more people are taking the steps prepared for their retirement. Especially as we live longer and longer, it is more and more important that we make this easy for people and get them saving for themselves.
If an employee wants to do that, and that law would be that you have to opt out of a savings retirement plan instead of opting in. So if they say, yes, I will participate in a 401k plan,
yeah, or like an IRA,
whatever. The question is, can they still pick where their money is going to be? Can they say, I want to go to Vanguard or whatever? And to what extent does your office ever hold any of that money, or do you act as an agent to set up the administrative launching of the program?
Correct. The Secure Choice Board will make some of those decisions, but they're committed to offering choice to the employers in terms of different types of investments they want to make. And we'll just administer this. We will put out an RFP to make sure that we find a private sector institutional money manager to help oversee this. And we've received a lot of information in doing this. You know, we think by our estimates there's somewhere around 1.2 million people who Secure Choice is going to help save for their retirement, help make it easier for them to invest in themselves.
And when would that become effective?
Well, legislation was just passed last December, signed into law in January, took effect June 1st. And the legislation gives us 2 years to get this program up and running.
So at this point,
it's a first in the nation type of program. We need to make sure it's done right, and so it's going to take us a little time to make sure that we set it up and that it's functioning the way everyone hopes.
Just to be clear, so employers, small employers who haven't heard of this yet, they are not required at this time to do it, but they will be required once the program's set up, is that right?
They're not required to do it right now. They will be if they have 25 or more employees and they've been doing business in the state of Illinois for longer than 2 years. For those really small employers out there who might be doing their payroll by hand, we're not going to have them do this. But if you have 25 or more employees, chances are good that you probably have some sort of third-party administrator to handle your payroll, and it's just adding one more deduction, just like deductions are made for health insurance and made for taxes currently.
Mike Frerichs, before we close out, is there other areas of issues that your office is dealing with?
Yeah, at a time when the state of Illinois is getting a lot of bad news in the press, we were very excited recently when we were able to provide a bright spot. And when I came in, we had a contract for a Bright Directions college savings account that was coming up. We put it out for a competitive bid, and we negotiated very hard with the winner. And we did that so we could reduce fees that families were paying. We eliminated the startup fees, we eliminated quarterly fees, and we cut the management fees by 43%. And what that means is Illinois families who are saving for their kids' college education through Bright Directions are going to have more of their dollars going towards their kids' college education and not into a money manager's back pocket. We were really excited by that. We did it because we wanted to help make it easier for families to save more and for more to go to the kids' college education. And then we were rewarded when Morningstar Rating Agency, who rates these 529 college savings plans, gave us an improved rating. Actually, we're in the top 2 in the silver category for similar sized plans in this country. And so at a time when credit agencies have been downgrading the state of Illinois, we've actually received an upgrade in our rating on our college savings plans.
And if anyone wants more information, I imagine they can go to your website?
Yeah, they can always go to IllinoisTreasurer.gov. From there, they can find our college savings plans. But also, as we just have been talking about with Kemper here, we're in charge of unclaimed property. We hold on to that money, but we don't want to hold on to it forever. It belongs to people in the state. And we encourage people to go to IllinoisTreasurer.gov, go to iCash, plug in your name. Plug in the name of your parents, your in-laws, your grandparents, and see if perhaps we're holding on to something that belongs to you. If you find that we are, we'd love to get it back into your hands.
All right, Treasurer Mike Frerichs, thank you for joining us.
Terry, thank you very much.
You're watching the Illinois Channel, an independent nonprofit corporation formed to provide gavel-to-gavel coverage of Illinois state government and other public affairs events taking place across Illinois.